Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 16, 2024 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was another winning week in terms of my predictions. Overall, I had another positive record, both against the spread and straight up. So far this week, through 14 games, against the spread, I am 8-6, and straight up, I am this week 12-2. That equals up to 57.1% against the spread. And straight up, that equals 85.7 or 86% straight up. So I am very thrilled with that progress for this week. Definitely was on a great start. 6-2 against the spread. 8-0 through the 1 o'clock starts. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a nosedive through the next 8 games where I went 2-6 against the spread. And so straight up, though, going 4-2 in the final 6 to get to this point. Not bad from an 8-0 start. 12-2. So now overall for the year, through 222 games, I am now 120.97.5 against the spread, which equals 55.2%. And straight up for the year, through 222 games, I'm 158.64, which equals 71.2%. So that is tremendous. My best years overall ever since doing these predictions. Really been doing a fantastic job with my predictions. And once again, just for a reminder for everybody tonight, I have the Minnesota Vikings -7, and the Minnesota Vikings straight up, and the Atlanta Falcons -4.5, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up for tonight's Monday night games for my against the spread and straight up picks. But it was a crazy week in the NFL, just like they all are. Bills-Lions was definitely the game of the year, or the offensive game of the year. So the Bills in the last 2 weeks have scored 90 points. Josh Allen had another 400-yard day with multiple rushing and passing touchdowns. I thought he was the best player on the field. Jared Goff was not horrible. The offense was by no means bad for the Lions. He put up 494 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was the first quarterback in NFL history to have a 5-touchdown game without interception and lose the game. It felt very much like his game against the Chiefs back in 2018. Well, actually, no, he won that one. But it felt very much like that type of game where the other quarterback didn't deserve to lose, but one did, and I think basically the Bills had one big turnover and one extra stop, which basically was the difference in the game. Also, Dan Campbell's bizarre onside kick with 10 minutes to go definitely was a very significant questionable decision for how the game ended up going. But, that was a crazy outcome. You look at Steelers-Eagles, what a game there. The Pennsylvania State Championship. The Eagles continue their 59-year winning streak of beating the Steelers at home. The Steelers still haven't won since 1965. The Pittsburgh Steelers only had 2 drives the entire second half. The Eagles dominated the time of possession, and they ran an 18-play drive with 8 minutes to go to bleed out the clock and win the game. And essentially, if you watch that game, the Eagles were just dominant through their passing game. Jalen Hurts had his best passing game in about a month. 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown had 8 receptions for $110 and a touchdown. Devontae also had 90 yards. Grant Calcaterra had a big 21-yard reception. Saquon was only held to 65 yards, but the Philadelphia defense stifled the entire Pittsburgh offense for just how inept and how they could not move the ball and how they really missed George Pickens on the outside, because that would have given them a genuine number 1 threat against this very good Eagles secondary. But, that was a crazy one. And then there were some other, games throughout the week that everybody's gotten to watch. You saw the Cowboys and Panthers. The Cowboys pretty much played a clean, fundamental game. Solid. Cooper Rush had 3 touchdowns. The Cowboys forced 4 turnovers. Eric Kendricks got an interception. Brandon Aubrey tried a 70-yard field goal that was horribly wide right, which I couldn't quite understand why they would make that call at that point in the game. You had Tampa shredding the Chargers. And not that I was surprised that Tampa won. I thought that was a 50-50 game. I just thought the Chargers would play better. But they obviously did not. And for Baker and that Bucs offense with Mike Evans, the big turning point of the game was Mike Evans getting that 35-yard touchdown to basically seal the game and kill all the Chargers' momentum. Also, the other problem with the Chargers was yesterday, they could not run the ball to save their life. I think they only had 14 carries for 32 yards the entire game, which for a Jim Harbaugh team, that's a really good sign you're going to win if he cannot run the ball, because that's Jim Harbaugh's entire identity and bread and butter. but that was surprising. If anybody watched Bengals Titans like I did, Joe Burrow and the offense did well enough. Joe Burrow another 300-yard day. Jamar Chase putting 1,500-yard, 100-plus reception season. He's been the best receiver in football. Should be a first-team All-Pro wide receiver. The Bengals defense got 4 massive turnovers, which was significant. And I thought that was impressive. But to me, but the big story of that was Will Levis, obviously. 98 yards, no TDs, 3 picks, another turnover. Just a horrific day. Mason Rudolph comes in for cleanup duty. But that was an interesting one. And just so many other games that went on. Commanders, Saints coming down to the wire. It was just a brilliant week overall, though. So, yep. But I just wanted my quick thoughts on all those. Like I said, once again, against the spread, 8-6 and 12-2 this week. That equals 57.1% against the spread. Straight up, it equals 85.7 or 86%. Overall for the year now through 222 games, I'm now 120, 97, and 5 against the spread. And straight up now, I'm 158 and 64. That equals 55.2 and 71.2% respectively for there. So, let me get into my predictions for the week. So, on Thursday, a change from what the schedule currently had. It was supposed to be Browns and Bengals, the Battle of Ohio, Part 2. But obviously with the Browns and Bengals and the conditions they are, they swapped it out for an AFC West battle. And when the 9-5 Denver Broncos travel to Los Angeles, they take on the 8-6 Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Denver here +3, but I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. And then on Saturday, December 21st, both games having significant meaning on Saturday, when the 9-5 Houston Texans travel to Kansas City to take on the 13-1 Kansas City Chiefs. The Houston Texans are 2.5-point favorites in this game, just because Patrick Mahomes might not be able to play, or I don't believe he will play. I am going to take the Houston Texans here -2.5, but I do want to put out this caveat here. If Patrick Mahomes is deemed healthy enough and capable of playing, I will take the Kansas City Chiefs here, whatever the point spread will be. But right now, I'm not assuming that Patrick Mahomes will play. So give me the Houston Texans here, -2.5, and Houston Texans straight up. Then the other Saturday game, the other big AFC North battle, if Pittsburgh wins, they get to clinch the AFC North entirely. If the Ravens win, they get to come right in and basically have a downward battle with the Steelers for the North end of the year. But in this game, the 10-4 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to the 9-5 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here straight up, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh here +6.5. Then the next game on Sunday, when the 2-12 New York Giants travel to Atlanta, take on the 7-7 or 6-8 Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 10-point favorites in this game. Give me the Atlanta Falcons here -10. The Atlanta Falcons straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-7 Arizona Cardinals travel to Carolina to take on the 3-11 Carolina Panthers. The Arizona Cardinals are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Arizona here -4 and Arizona straight up. Then the next game, when the 12-2 Detroit Lions go to Chicago to take on the 5-9 or 4-10 Chicago Bears. The Detroit Lions are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here -7 and Detroit straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-11 Tennessee Titans travel to Indianapolis to take on the 6-8 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Indianapolis here straight up, but I'm going to take Tennessee +4.5. Then the next game, when the 8-6 Los Angeles Rams travel to New York to take on the 4-10 New York Jets. The Los Angeles Rams are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Los Angeles here -3 and Los Angeles straight up. Then the next game, when the 12-2 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Washington to take on the 9-5 Washington Commanders. Philadelphia Eagles are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -3.5. Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, in the Battle of Ohio Part 2, now scheduled to one on Sunday, when the 6-8 Cincinnati, or when the 3-11 Cleveland Browns travel to the 6-8 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Cincinnati here -7 and Cincinnati straight up. Then on the next game, when the 12-2 or 11-3 Minnesota Vikings travel to Seattle to take on the 8-6 Seattle Seahawks. The Minnesota Vikings are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Minnesota here -4.5 and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, in the battle for the number 1 pick, when the 3-11 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Las Vegas to take on the 3-11 or 2-12 Las Vegas Raiders. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 1-point underdogs in this game. essentially in a pick 'em, you're going to pick whatever the weaker quarterback or whatever the better quarterback is. And I believe that right now is Mac Jones. Regardless if it's Desmond Ridder or Aiden O'Connell that gets the start, I will take the Jaguars to win in this good but ugly game to where whoever loses should be considered the ultimate winner for how bad both of these teams' draft stocks are right now. So, the next game, when the 6-8 San Francisco 49ers travel to Miami to take on the 6-8 Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Miami here minus 2.5, and Miami straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-11 New England Patriots travel to Buffalo to take on the 11-3 Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 14-point favorites in this game. I'm going to learn the lesson that I've had over the last couple weeks taking big favorites in big spots, and I'm just thinking with how Buffalo's been playing, especially with how New England is, especially with Drake May having to go into Buffalo at this moment. I think the Bills are just significantly the better team, and I think they stomped the Patriots pretty mightily. So that's why I like Buffalo here minus 14 and Buffalo straight up. Then the Sunday night game, when the 8-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Dallas to take on the 6-8 Dallas Cowboys. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here minus 4 and Tampa Bay straight up. And lastly, in the Monday night game, when the 5-9 New Orleans Saints travel to Green Bay to take on the 10-4 Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers are 13.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Green Bay here minus 13.5 and Green Bay straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Los Angeles Chargers over the Denver Broncos. This game, to me, when you look at it, Denver's played very well over the last few weeks. They've won a good amount of games. Sean Payton has made Bo Nix look into a genuine quarterback, probably the best quarterback they've drafted since John Elway, and probably the best quarterback they've had overall since Peyton Manning, over a decade ago. But, and I think the other key thing that I'm impressed with Denver has been their defense. They were the number one defense in terms of getting sacks, getting pressure on the quarterback. They got 3 significant turnovers gifted by the Colts. Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball out of the end zone. The Nick Bonito horrible flea flicker lateral move that ended up going miserably. And then the third pick was just a horrible, bad throw by non-quarterback Anthony Richardson to Patrick Surtain. Even though, I guess after that play, he did suffer a low ankle sprain, so hopefully he'll be okay, but I don't know if he'll play in such short notice with that injury. And then you look at the Chargers and go, when you watch them, it's like, it's a good team. It's a solid team. Justin Herbert's played pretty well. He only threw his second interception of the year yesterday against Tampa, but when the Chargers needed to stop or make a big play, Tampa every time was able to move the chains, have good run schemes, have good run fits, and then Baker and Mike were just kind of carving up the Chargers secondary, which I thought was one of the better units in the entire league. But obviously I was wrong with that one in terms of yesterday. But I'm going to take the Chargers here straight up, just because I believe that the Broncos, if that's another team, if you're going to give the ball over the way Bo has over the last couple weeks, I think like 5 or 6 times, it is going to be very hard to, I believe, beat a Charger team that is motivated and understand that even though they should be able to get the 7th seed at worst, they want to at least make sure that they can get the 6th seed and feel very confident of getting a better matchup compared to what the 7th seed is going to have to go through. Should be a great game, real entertaining, good old division rivalry with everything going on. But I am going to take the Broncos here +3 just to be safe in terms of my betting prediction. And I think the game is that close. But I think Cameron Dicker makes a big game-winning kick to end the game and get the Chargers to 9-6, which will make a very unique logjam in the AFC wildcard picture. So that's all I like the Los Angeles Chargers here straight up, but the Denver Broncos +3. The next game, the Houston Texans over the Kansas City Chiefs. I am taking Houston here based on the fact that I just have more faith in what C.J. Stroud and that offense has been able to do compared to Carson Wentz and how limited the Chiefs' offense was right after Patrick left the game with his ankle sprain. Do I think that Carson Wentz could beat the Texans in their current form? yes, of how banged they're up their offensive line. There's really no big receivers. And I think Carson can outplay Stroud in moments. But I think Stroud's the young phenom who's had a bit of a sophomore slump. But I believe he will be, in a much better position moving forward in this game. And I just can't trust Carson in all, the experience he has, all the opportunities to come in for a backup role for a couple weeks. I just don't know if he's going to play well enough to give the Chiefs comfort that they can sit him through the Christmas game and possibly play him on until after the New Year. So I also think Derek Stingley was phenomenal yesterday. 2 big interceptions. Two also had a massive fumble that got down to the 5-yard line. Also, I do want to shout out real quickly, Greg DeBose got knocked out by one of the Texans players. And Caleb Bullock. And I hope that he will be okay. And we all here and around the NFL community wish Mr. DuBose a very healthy, quick, and safe recovery. But, when you look at these two teams, the Chiefs, they've been hanging on by a thread the entire year. They finally had a comfortable game where they were by, 14 points going into the fourth quarter. And it just kind of snowballed thanks to Jameis Winston's 6 turnovers. Most turnovers in a game by the Browns since 93 when Belichick was there. So, fun little tidbit there. But I'm going to take Houston here minus 2.5 based on the fact that I think C.J. Stroud will be able to make a few more plays than Carson Wentz. And even though I know Joe Mixon may not be able to run the ball that well, I think the Chiefs just have better situational awareness, better coaching, and I think with the Eagles, with them pretty mad, I feel like the Chiefs should be able to get the win easily and make it very hard for the Bills to be able to come back and win the division. So that's why I like Houston here, minus 2.5, and Houston straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Pittsburgh Steelers. These games usually are very close. Back in week 8 or 9, I took the Steelers to win. They won by 2 points. And, in this game, it's going to come down to, again, I think the reason why I'm taking the Ravens this time is threefold. Number one, they're home. And I know Lamar only has 1 career win against the Ravens throughout his career. It doesn't matter if it was a home game or a road game. But I think the Steelers are frustrated with the lack of offensive production. I think the defense is getting tired, and now they're suffering injuries. T.J. Watt got a low ankle sprain, which will be interesting to see how long it'll take him to recover. But also, it'll just determine if we are going to need to be able to play fundamentally with the Steelers in their kind of game. If it gets into a shootout, I feel all the confidence in the world the Ravens can win the shootout. But the reason why I'm going with the Ravens, though, just healthier, more motivated, and I think the Steelers, they only have 1 win in Baltimore since over the last 5 or 6 years, and I think that the Steelers can grind out a good performance, but I think Tucker and the Ravens offense will just be a little bit too much to give the Ravens the win. So that's why I like Pittsburgh here, plus 6.5, but Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the New York Giants. I'm taking Atlanta here. Regardless of what happens against the Raiders, the Falcons are just clearly more dominant in all sides of the ball. The Giants, I do want to shout out Tim Boyle. For the first time in his career, he actually, I think they said he hit the ball, or he actually did something positive that I don't know if it could go away quickly. But I just really like how Atlanta in this matchup with the Giants should be able to dominate the line of scrimmage in both ways. And I think the Falcons just fundamentally are clearly the best team. So I do like that. I want to shout out Tommy DeVito for getting his first Tim Boyle, not Tommy DeVito. Tim Boyle for getting his first NFL career touchdown pass. I think he's been in the league for now 6 or 7 years. It's unbelievable he played on that many teams in that many games and did not obtain one touchdown the entire way through. But again, this game is going to be interesting, sure. Could the Raiders make it competitive tonight? We'll see. I think the Giants are worse than them. The Giants, let Lamar Jackson have 5 touchdown passes to 4 incompletions. This team has given up. This team really has no heart or fight, and I think they just waiting to pack their bags and go on to vacation somewhere different so they can forget everything that's going on with the Falcons lately. So that's why I like the Atlanta Falcons here -10. The Atlanta Falcons straight up. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the Carolina Panthers. I'm taking Arizona here. Better quarterback, better defense, better run game. Kyler typically plays well on the East Coast, and I just don't see the Panthers, even though they played fairly well over the last few weeks. Bryce Young's averaging about 240 yards a game. He took a bit of a step back today with the 4 big turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles lost by Bryce. And I think the Cardinals, with what they have going defensively and offensively, I think Gannon should be able to keep his job. The offense has been pretty respectable more often than not on occasions. But in this game, when you look at the Cardinals and look at the Panthers are just a state of, they're trying to be competitive and respectful, but they know that most times if they're not playing together, playing with somebody really good, they don't really pop out that much. Again, I think Carolina, can they make it competitive? Sure. This will bring back 2015 NFC title game appearances. Sorry, Cardinal fans, but it was the first thing I thought of. Maybe he can get that, get the confidence of going into another year. But I'm going to take Arizona here. Better coach, better team, better defense, and I just trust what the Cardinals have been able to do more often compared to the Panthers. The Panthers have been scrappy, and that's good and close, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, so obviously the Panthers experiment has been going on very badly up to this point. But that's why I like Arizona here, -4 in Arizona straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Chicago Bears. I'm taking Detroit here based on the fact that I have confidence in Detroit to kind of right the wrong from what happened yesterday. And the Bears offense, as much strides as it's made throughout the year, it's still a pretty bad defense. If Kyle Shanahan and the Niners can outschool and outclass it through one quarter, I definitely think the Lions can do the same exact thing. I think that when you look at the Bears, I think Caleb actually done a fairly respectable job this year. But it's very much where when you watch what the Bears have done, they just get off to too many slow starts. It's not really great, not really that impressive. And I just think, again, the Lions, they're mad. They played a heck of a game. And I think here's the one thing I will say about the Lions. Okay, they are not going to make the Super Bowl this year. As much as it pains me, because remember, if you see in the back here, I had the Lions and the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. I think the Lions can get to the NFC Championship game because I think that offense is way too dominant and way too fresh and persistent not to get far into the playoffs. But if they had to play a Philadelphia or a Buffalo or even a Kansas City, I do not think they would win those games of how much injuries have belittled the team, how frustrating the other players are after. And also losing David Montgomery to a MCL injury indefinitely is pretty significant. And I think, again, can Jahmyr Gibbs pick up that slack? Sure he could. But, when you look at the Lions and Bears, last time on Thanksgiving, this was a 3-point game in Detroit. I feel pretty confident this time saying that the Lions can, with their anger, go into Chicago and get a pretty dominant win through the run ground and Jared Goff playing more efficient style football. And I just think, again, the Bears are just in free fall. And if Kyle Shanahan with Brock Purdy and the remains of the Niners can outcoach you, let Dan Campbell show you the exact same thing too. So, excuse me. That's all I like Detroit here -7 and Detroit straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Tennessee Titans. This game to me comes down to I'm taking Indianapolis based on the fact that I am going to trust the coaching staff and the rest of the roster over the other coaching staff and their rest of the roster. Most of the time you usually talk about quarterbacks, but my goodness, are the Colts and Titans quarterbacks both god-awful. It really makes you sad that those two franchises put first and second round picks into those two kids, and they are doo-doo. They are bad. Though, and I think this is a fun take for a lot of people. Let's just spend a minute on it. I think the crazier take is, they're both bad, but Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, I'm just going to say this right now, Anthony Richardson may be the worst quarterback to possibly play football. And people could argue, Tebow, he's on that percentage level, but at least Tim Tebow could win games on a fairly consistent basis. And I know for, Richardson, he's 500 this year, but it's like even Tim Tebow made more contributions than what Anthony Richardson can do. Think about it. They were that desperate. There were plenty of times, if you watch this Colts-Broncos game, and I did, because honestly I thought Bo Nix basically turned over himself out of the offensive rookie of the year conversation. It's Jane Daniels' award to win. I think the honorary mention should be Brock Bowers. Because I think Brock's had a sensational year, but the Raiders suck, so they're not going to give it to him. But watching the Colts here, it is just mind-blowingly bad how bad this guy is. This guy, he's just not a quarterback. He's not a quarterback. And people looked at the Josh Allen stuff and, Donovan McNabb's like, oh, they played that badly. And I'm like, yes, but there were just some easy things he was missing. On multiple 3rd and longs, they went to a draw. Again, Jonathan Taylor, I'm not going to harp on him for dropping the ball at the end zone. That was really bad. But, when you look at this game, Titans and Colts, it's like both these quarterbacks are just bad in their own way. But, to be honest, Will Levis looks like Alex Smith compared to Anthony Richardson, who makes Jamarcus Russell look competent. I'm sorry, the Colts have to realize that Chris Ballard, and I would fire him for this offense, he made a massive mistake by drafting this project. This project quarterback is not going to get anywhere. Or it's essentially a project that they put one thing in and it all went poof. He's just not it. And, the Colts, you could say, well, he's had moments. You know what the best thing Anthony Richardson has? He's a good-looking guy with a cannon and great legs. Because the way he does everything in the processing or just the decision-making, not the greatest of skill sets in that department. Got phenomenal legs, got a cannon of an arm, can definitely make a lot of good athletic moves, but he cannot execute the position from more of the mental aspect at a great level. And look, here's the thing. They're going to give him these 3 games, but I'm just going to tell Colts fans, look at what the Titans did with Will Levis yesterday. 98 yards, 3 picks. The worst one was that 3rd pick to Geno Stone, where he literally gave it right to Geno. And that basically ended the game. I think Will Levis' career is done as well. And essentially, I think the Colts are just going to win based off the better coaching staff and the better talent they have on the roster. I know the Titans might have some better weapons, and the Titans' defense has actually been very good. The one thing I do want to give the Titans credit for, Denard Wilson, former secondary coach, Philadelphia, former secondary coach for us, the Ravens. He's put up together an actually very good and underrated defense. Nobody just talks about that defense because the offensive team is so bad. But I'm going to take the Colts here to win straight up because they're home and I just trust that coaching staff. But I'm going to take the Titans here plus 4.5 because honestly, if Anthony Richardson, he could literally throw them the game, but it's basically just going to be whoever doesn't like the football more. We are in the holiday season. Whatever quarterback is more in the giving mood or the spirit of Christmas, that team will lose the game depending on whatever quarterback is more in the holiday spirit. And I believe that will be Will Levis, but I will take the 4.5 just because I think Anthony Richardson might be feeling a bit more generous. Or very much like the SNL skit over the 2 weeks ago. Maybe, they'll sign with the Mets for both these bad teams. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's a sad display of the 2023 draft class to where Bryce Young is that's funny. I think Bryce has less wins than Levis and Richardson, but by far out of the 3 first-round quarterbacks, he's the best one. He's the one that, again, and I don't even know if he has that much of a future left in Carolina, but out of those 3 guys, I'm taking Bryce Young every day, all day, twice on Sunday over both what Richardson and Levis have produced throughout the season so far. So, again, interesting divisional game. Both these teams are essentially out of it. I think the Colts win based off their coaching staff, better defense, better running game, and just a better coaching staff for being at home. Would I be surprised if the Titans won? No, just because I feel like Richardson cost them the game, but Will Levis just gift them the game right back. So that's like Indianapolis here straight up at Tennessee plus 4.5. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams or the New York Jets. This one, look, the Rams, Starting at 1-4, they are now 8-6. They've won 7 of their last 9, I believe 4 in a row. Stafford, 5 straight games without a turnover. Kyron Williams has been running the ball very well. They very much in a weird 4-day stretch. One from a game where they had the second highest scoring game, or the highest scoring game until the second highest scoring game in the league all year, to a game that the following 4 days later, they won a game where 6 field goals were scored. Fortunately for them, they had 4. The Niners had 2. And that's how the Rams won the game. And I just believe, again, they're playing the Jets. The Jets were playing the Jags, which ended up being a weird back-and-forth battle. But, I think, fortunately, Rodgers had Devontae Adams. One side had Rodgers and Devontae Adams. The other one had Mac Jones and the remains of the Jaguars roster. And when it came down to it, Devontae had over 190 yards in the second half, which I believe was an NFL record for how dominant a second half it was. And I think the Jets, had a nice little fun moment because they were like, okay, we're not as bad as the Jags. But now when they come home, they're going to realize, oh crap, we now have to play a Ram team that is significantly better in all different sides. And the Jets have not won against the NFC West the entire year. So if you played the 3 worst teams in the division and have lost pretty decisively in every one of them, what would make the Rams any different? But that's why I like the Los Angeles Rams here, -3, and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Commanders. I'm taking Philadelphia here, -3.5, very easily. Look, Washington, Jaden Daniels played very well. Another solid game. Terry McLaurin, 2 big touchdowns, able to run the ball effectively. They had a big 14-point lead, but then the Saints defense was able to tighten up, stifle the rest of the Commanders offense, and essentially it took a botched ref call by them to stop the clock to allow Spencer Rattler to hit a touchdown pass to Foster Moreau. Darren Rizzi, being an interim coach, he wanted to end it and try to, send the fans home happy. Unfortunately for him, just like very much the Saints, very bad voodoo. The Saints ended up not being able to convert there, and the Commanders were able to win to get their first winning season, I believe, since 2018, or 2017. First time, like in 2015, the Commanders are actually going to secure a winning season for the franchise. And for the Eagles, like I mentioned before, it was a pretty dominant game. I think the Eagles are clearly the best team in the NFL, health-wise, coach-wise, maybe not coach-wise, that's a debate, but health-wise, talent-wise, QB-wise, just all around the board, the Eagles have the best team in football. The Eagles, should be able to go into Washington and run the ball effectively against a very porous Commanders defense. Jalen should be able to play well against the weak Commander secondary. I think the Eagles just kind of grind through another week to end, to get to their ending point of playing the Cowboys and the Giants in back-to-back games at home, which would be, a riot and fun to see them roll through the rest of the division. It's all going to determine by Detroit if they can win their final 2 games, which are against the banged-up Niner team and the Minnesota Vikings, which I believe, if everything goes according to plan, that should be the last Sunday night game of the year, Week 18 for the NFC North in a massive game, which I'm really looking forward to. But the Eagles and Commanders, this one easily, Eagles are just rolling, healthier. The Commanders, they lost Zach Ertz to concussion, and I think the Eagles just fundamentally run the ball down the Commanders' second defensive line's throat, and I just don't trust the Commanders' secondary, even though they were playing Marshawn Lattimore, and he did play 49 of 51 snaps. Good for him for getting a win in his debut. I just don't think that that'll hold up against this Philadelphia team that's on a 10-game franchise winning streak and look clearly like the best team in the NFL, bar none. So that's like Philadelphia here, -3.5. Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Bengals over the Browns. The Browns are just a train wreck. More defenders got hurt. Nick Chubb broke his foot. Jameis Winston committed. The Browns offense committed 5 or 6 turnovers. Most turnovers in a game since Bill Belichick had them back in '93. And I just think the Bengals, as well as they played, Jamar, 100 receptions, 1,500 plus yards, 15 plus touchdowns, joining T.O., Randy in a very exclusive club. He's been the best receiver all year statistically. But in this Battle of Ohio, the Bengals usually win this game more often than not. I think the Bengals, with Joe Burrow playing as well as he is, with how banged up the Browns secondary is, I think the Bengals the Bengals host the Browns and get a nice, decisive, quality win to keep their barely slim playoff hopes alive. So that's like Cincinnati here -7, and Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Howell or Geno Smith hurt his ankle, and I don't know if he's going to play. Sam Howell did not play that much better. The Packers defense got 7 sacks on Sam Howell and Geno all last night, and the Vikings defense will play better. And I just trust the Vikings with their talent should be able to go into Seattle in a hostile environment and play effectively, in this kind of decisive game, especially if Geno can't play. If Geno played, could the Seahawks maybe have a shot? Yes. That Seattle defense at times did have some big fourth down stops, some big run stops that made it a little more competitive. But when you look at the Vikings and Hawks, the Vikings are healthier. They have the better quarterback in Darnold. They have the better secondary. And I just cannot trust with Seattle with how banged up their offensive line is, and with Kenneth Walker being hurt, even though hopefully we'll be able to come back this coming week. I think the Minnesota Vikings go into Seattle and get a nice, quality, solid win to end the year before they have their last home game against the Packers next week. So that's like Minnesota here, -4.5. Minnesota straight up. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Las Vegas Raiders. Don't need to talk about anything. Just I'm going to say this. Mac Jones beats Desmond Ridder or Aiden O'Connell. That's it. There's really not that much to talk about. It's a literal pick'em. The only argument you can make in this game is saying the loser of this game will be guaranteed the number one remaining besides the Giants. The loser of this game will have a very good chance of getting the number one draft pick. Maybe outside of the Giants just lose out, but I think the biggest winner of this game is the New York Giants because they basically now can pretty much seal their fate. They are likely going to have the number one pick in the draft regardless of what happens. I think the Jags do win this one, which basically knocked them into the top 6 or 7, which stinks. But if the Raiders do win, that would essentially mean the Giants, I think, would secure the number one pick. But again, in this game, if you're going to pick a winner, the winner, a.k.a. loser, I'm going to take the Jags here just because they have the better quarterback. Max Crosby's out. The Raiders do have Brock Bowers, and they might have Desmond Ridder, but Mac Jones over the last couple weeks, or just throughout his career, just seems to have played better in a more consistent way compared to whoever the Raiders decide to start a quarterback this coming week. It's going to be an awful game. I just think there's intrigue because of the number one picks situation, but unfortunately, I think the Jaguars tend to lose in that moment because they have the better quarterback at this moment, and I think the Jags get a win to get the 4-11 with 2 games to go to seal their fate of not getting number one pick. And the Raiders, they're going to be definitely in the suck for Shador way, and it is very much feel like they are going to be set at the suck for Shador mark by losing to the Jags. So that's why I like Jacksonville as a slight underdog +1 and Jacksonville straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, they've been banged up. And even though, again, their defense for the first time in a while played a very great game, even though the only thing that people could talk about defensively was Devondre Campbell walking out on the team. I know that was one of the more disappointing moments you've seen the entire year. I've seen the entire year. And I just think it's a problem for the Niners because this season has gone so badly for them that, there's a lot of questions about Christian and Trent and Nick and where this team goes. If they need to blow it all up or just need to retool. I think they need to get rid of some of the old, trim some of the excess fat. But my big take that I would want to mention very quickly is the Niners have a culture problem. That goes from Jed York to John Lynch to even Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan runs a pretty loose ship in a lot of bad ways. And people that know me, I will admit, I'm not the biggest Kyle Shanahan fan, and I know they're probably not going to fire him. But they really need to think about it. Because these guys are obnoxious. These guys are loud. These guys are cocky. These guys are they don't seem to respect what the coaches want. They seem bitter about, Devondre was mad that Dre Greenlaw, a better linebacker, by the way. Even though I know any Devondre Campbell defender can acknowledge that Devondre Campbell is a former All-Pro linebacker. Maybe people didn't realize that. 2 years ago, he was an All-Pro linebacker. 2 years ago was a very long time, and that's crazy. But yeah, he was an All-Pro linebacker. And to me, it's where, when you look at the Niners, I think that they just have a lot of just turmoil and strife. I think it'll be good. But also, I just feel like for the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel now is 3-15 against winning football teams. And Tua Tagovailoa. We all need to have a conversation of, my goodness, the Dolphins made a mistake. I know he's leading the league in completion percentage, 74%, and he's played pretty much fairly well for the majority of the year, but this guy and this coach are going into next year on a massive hot seat if they miss the playoffs because this team is stuck. Tua is just a poor man version of Dak. That's what he is. And it's just like, if you're the Dolphins, you paid this guy $212 million, tax-free, by the way, thanks to the state of Florida, tax-free dollars. And he basically coughed you up a game where your defense played incredibly well. Anthony Weaver, whose unit has been lambasted most of the year, former Raven defensive lineman, former defensive line coach. I just feel like, again, like the Dolphins, they just have a massive Tua problem. Tua, I just think, again, like you are stuck with him. This is why I would never give him Tua that extension, because I did not believe in him. Tua, and I hate being context, but Tua is the one quarterback in the NFL that if you watch him, he gets carried by his teammates more than usual. I hate being that context guy, but it's obvious. When Jalen went down, everybody was okay. And let's be honest, he and Tyreek aren't even that compatible. You know who has the best connection with this year, if you look at it? Jonnu Smith, who, by the way, when Jonnu first got there, he was irrelevant through about the first half of the year. And now Jonnu, you could argue he's been the best tight end in football for the last 6 to 7 weeks. Because, Tua has a connection with Jonnu that's better than what he has with Tyreek at this moment. I think Tyreek only had 1 reception for 9 yards. Tyreek's had a horrible year by his standards. Again, he's been hurt a bit, which has been tough. But it's like, for a guy that wanted all that money and restructured to have $90 million fully guaranteed, is this what you wanted? Did you want the noodle arm quarterback and a team that is inept so you can enjoy your $90 million fully guaranteed Drew Rosenhaus guaranteed money just chilling out in Miami Beach? Because I would hate this. Yeah, I think the Dolphins will win this game because I think the Dolphins just are a bit healthier. There's a better vibe, and I think the Dolphins, they usually beat up on tomato cans, and that's what the Niners have been most of the year at this point. And I think they officially knock out the Niners officially out of the playoffs at this moment. But I'm going to take the Dolphins here just because I think they're healthier. But I think that's the bigger question the Dolphins are going to have. Is that a lot of people thought going into the year, they thought that you could win the division, and you're probably not even going to make the playoffs, which is really sad. But that's, in this game, I'm going to take Miami. They're healthier, they're at home, and I just trust the Tua will outplay Purdy with the weapons he has, and I think that'll be the difference in the game. Should be a great game, should be an interesting game. Kind of two mediocre teams, mentor versus mentee, and I think the mentee, with the Niners having to go out to the East Coast, last time they went out to the East Coast in Buffalo, it wasn't great, and I don't think it'll be as bad because they're going to a different part, and they won't be dealing with snow, but the Dolphins, with their run game, with their consistency, and with just their health, they go in and beat the Niners to officially, finally put a full nail into the Niners' coffin for their postseason hopes. So that's Miami here, -2.5, Miami straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the New England Patriots. I'm taking Buffalo here. New England, respectable. They've had moments. Drake May is somebody that you can watch and go, he's good. He has some promise. I don't know if you need to necessarily get a quarterback, but you just need to get a lot of talent and help around him. Where the Bills have won 6 straight games. Josh Allen should be able to lock up the MVP with these final 3 weeks by getting to play the Pats twice and the Jets. They'll roll through that. And again, do I think that New England maybe could cover 14 points? Maybe. But over the last couple weeks, I failed with the Eagles-Panthers. I bet the Eagles too much. Last week, I bet the Giants too much and had too much faith in them. With this division game, I know it's a division, but they're at home. Josh Allen has routinely thumped the Pats throughout his career. I think, again, with this roster, how it's going, with Kincaid and Coleman back, I think they easily get another dominant win at home to get to 12-3 to keep the pressure on the Chiefs with their 2-game lead in the AFC number 1 seed overall. So that's why I like Buffalo here, -14, and Buffalo straight up. And then the final 2 games, Tampa Bay over Dallas. Dallas has been a train wreck all year at home. Tampa Bay has been on a roll. Tampa usually, tends to play fairly well. Baker's been undefeated against the NFC East the whole year, which is kind of impressive now if you think about it. He's beaten the Commanders and the Eagles which now, in hindsight today, those are pretty impressive wins Tampa has. I think, Rashad White should be able to run really well. And the Cowboys just overall, for the most part, have just been horrifically defensively at home. Of how Bucky Irving's been running, of how Tucker's been running, but Evans has been able to make big catches. Had a season high 159 yards yesterday. I think the Bucs, even if the Cowboys can put up some points with their offense the way it's going with Cooper, I think Baker can outshoot Cooper in a huge Sunday night game for Tampa to basically hold on to keep the NFC South at bay. And I think Tampa gets a good quality win there. All for those reasons. That's why the Tampa Bay here -4 and Tampa Bay straight up. And lastly, the Green Bay Packers of the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are playing with their second or third string quarterback. It should be Rattler. The Packers have been dominant, and I think the Packers are motivated because last year, the Saints are a little motivated. Because remember, they blew a 17-point lead last year against the same Packer team about a year ago. But boy, has a year changed, and boy, has a year made a big difference in where these two teams are now. Derek Carr, once again, probably will not be able to play. And I just think with this Packers defense, as dominant as it's been, with his ball hawking as it's been a top 5 defense for majority of the year. Josh Jacobs has been running wild. He's been the third best running back in the league the entire year, behind Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. I just think the Packers get another comfortable, solid win over a Saint team that, has shown some fight, but they just know they're not the Packers, and I don't think they'll ever be the Packers at this stage. So that's like Green Bay here -13.5 and Green Bay straight up. So those are my comments and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. And I just want to mention very quickly that next week I will be putting out a video, but unfortunately with my work schedule, it'll just be the predictions. I don't know if I'll have time to actually do an analysis, but I promise you next week, I promise you on December 30th, I will be coming out with a longer form video as usual for the last regular season week of the year. All my predictions, but I just want to just tell everybody again, next week, a very short video due to the holidays and my work schedule. I will be putting out my predictions, but that is it. So good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fellow prognosticators. The fantasy, the playoffs are probably starting for everybody this week or to the next two. The next week or this week's probably starts for everybody their fantasy playoffs. Week 16 and 17. Best of luck to everyone. I know I'm in one playoff bracket and a bunch of consolation brackets or just bad fantasy football all around. But overall, though, with all the bad fantasy stuff, though, I will greatly take my predicting season because it's been the best one I've had. But again, shout out to Andrew Warren. Shout out to Bridgewater's Finest. Shout out to Half Moon's Picks. Shout out to all the great prognosticators, Fire and Brim Sports, the MJ Take, Sports Fan Entertainment. Check all those guys and gals out on their different pages to get great analysis from them on their predictions and their teams. But until next week for the holidays, this is Matt Fanatic signing off. Until then, everyone, so long.